Bible in a Year Live, Chronological Project, Week 22, Day 8, The Message. During Jehoram's reign, Edom revolted from Judah's rule and set up their own king. Jehoram responded by setting out with his officers and chariots. Edom surrounded him, but in the middle of the night, he and his charioteers broke through the lines and hit Edom hard. Edom continues to revolt against Judah right up to the present. Even little Libnah revolted at that time. The evidence accumulated. Since Jehoram had abandoned God, the God of his ancestors, God was abandoning him. He even went so far as to build pagan sacred shrines in the mountains of Judah. He brazenly led Jerusalem away from God, seducing the whole country. One day, he got a letter from Elijah the prophet. It read, "From God, the God of your ancestors David, a message. Because you have not kept the ways of Jehoshaphat your father and Asa your grandfather, kings of Judah, but have taken up with the ways of the kings of Israel in the north, leading Judah and Jerusalem away from God, going step by step down the apostate path of Ahab and his crew, why you even killed your own brothers, all of them better men than you. God is going to afflict your people, your wives, your sons, and everything you have with a terrible plague, and you are going to come down with a terrible disease of the colon, painful, humiliating." The trouble started with an invasion. God incited the Philistines and the Arabs who lived near the Ethiopians to attack Jehoram. They came to the borders of Judah, forced their way in, and plundered the place, robbing the royal palace of everything in it, including his wives and sons. One son, his youngest, Ahaziah, was left behind. The terrible and fatal disease in his colon followed. After about 2 years, he was totally incontinent and died writhing in pain. His people didn't honor him by lighting a great bonfire, as was customary with his ancestry. He was 32 years old when he became king and reigned for 8 years in Jerusalem. There were no tears shed when he died. It was good riddance, and they buried him in the city of David, but not in the royal cemetery. The rest of the life and times of Jehoram, the record of his rule, is written in the Chronicles of the kings of Judah. Jehoram died and was buried in the family grave in the city of David. His son Ahaziah succeeded him as king. Ahaziah of Judah. In the 12th year of the reign of Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began his reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king. He ruled only a year in Jerusalem. His mother was Athaliah, granddaughter of Omri, king of Israel. He lived and ruled just like the Ahab family had done, continuing the same evil in God's sight line of sin, related by both marriage and sin to the Ahab clan. He joined Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, in a war against Hazael, king of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead. The archers wounded Joram. Joram pulled back to Jezreel to convalesce from injuries he had received in the fight with Hazael. Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, paid a visit to Joram, son of Ahab, on his sickbed in Jezreel. The people of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, Jehoram's youngest son, king. Raiders from the desert who had come with the Arabs against the settlement had killed all the older sons. That's how Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, became king. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, but reigned only 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother was Athaliah, granddaughter of Omri. He lived and ruled just like the Ahab family had done, his mother training him in evil ways. God also considered him evil, related by both marriage and sin to the Ahab clan. After the death of his father, he attended the sin school of Ahab and graduated with a degree in doom. He did what they taught him, went with Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, in the war against Hazael, king of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead. Joram, wounded by the Arameans, retreated to Jezreel to recover from the wounds he received in Ramah in his war with Hazael, king of Aram. Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, paid a visit to Joram, son of Ahab, on his sickbed at Jezreel. The fate of Ahaziah when he went to visit was God's judgment on him. When Ahaziah arrived at Jezreel, he and Joram met with Jehu, son of Nimshi, whom God had already authorized to destroy the dynasty of Ahab. Jehu, already at work, executing doom on the dynasty of the Ahab, came upon the captains of Judah and Ahaziah's nephews, part of Ahaziah's delegation, and killed them outright. Then he sent out a search party looking for Ahaziah himself. They found him hiding out in Samaria and hauled him back to Jehu, and Jehu killed him. They didn't, though, just leave his body there. Out of respect for his grandfather Jehoshaphat, famous as a sincere seeker after God, they gave him a decent burial, but there was no one left in Ahaziah's family capable of ruling the kingdom. Jehu of Israel. One day Elisha the prophet ordered a member of the guild of prophets, "Get yourself ready, take a flask of oil, and go to Ramoth Gilead. Look for Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, son of Nimshi. When you find him, get him away from his companions and take him to a back room. Take your flask of oil and pour it over his head and say, 'God's word, I anoint you king over Israel.' Then open the door and get out of there as fast as you can. Don't wait around." The young prophet went to Ramoth Gilead. On arrival, he found the army officers all sitting around. He said, "I have a matter of business with you, officer." Jehu said, "Which one of us?" "With you, officer." He got up and went inside the building. The young prophet poured the oil on his head and said, "God's word, the God of Israel, I have anointed you to be king over the people of God, over Israel. Your assignment is to attack the regime of Ahab, your master. I am avenging the massacre of my servants, the prophets. Yes, the Jezebel massacre of all the prophets of God. The entire line of Ahab is doomed. I am wiping out the entire bunch of that sad lot. I'll see to it that the family of Ahab experiences the same fate as the family of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and the family of Baasha, son of Ahijah. As for Jezebel, the dogs will eat her a carcass in the open fields of Jezreel. No burial for her." Then he opened the door and made a run for it. Jehu went back out to his master's officers. They asked, "Is everything all right? What did that crazy fool want with you?" He said, "You know that kind of man, all talk." "That's a lie," they said. "Tell us what's going on." He said, "He told me this and this and this. In effect, God's word, I anoint you king of Israel." They sprang into action. Each man grabbed his robe. They piled them at the top of the steps for a makeshift throne. Then they blew the trumpet and declared, "Jehu is king." That ignited the conspiracy of Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, son of Nimshi, against Joram. Meanwhile, Joram and the entire army were defending Ramoth Gilead against Hazael, king of Aram, except that Joram had pulled back to Jezreel to convalesce from the injuries he got from the Arameans in the battle with Hazael, king of Aram. Jehu said, "If you really want me as king, don't let anyone sneak out of the city and blab the news in Jezreel." Then Jehu mounted a chariot and rode to Jezreel, where Joram was in bed, resting. King Ahaziah of Judah had come down to visit Joram. A sentry standing duty on the watchtower in Jezreel saw the company of Jehu arrive. He said, "I see a band of men." Joram said, "Get a horseman and send him out to meet them and inquire, is anything wrong?" The horseman rode out to meet Jehu and said, "The king wants to know if there's anything wrong." Jehu said, "What's it to you whether things are right or wrong? Fall in behind me." The sentry said, "The messenger reached them, but he's not returning." The king then sent a second horseman. When he reached them, he said, "The king wants to know if there's anything wrong." Jehu said, "What's it to you whether things are right or wrong? Fall in behind me." The sentry said, "The messenger reached him, but he's not returning. The driving is like the driving of Jehu, son of Nimshi. Crazy." Joram ordered, "Get my chariot ready." They hitched up his chariot. Joram, king of Israel, and Hazael, king of Judah, each in his own chariot, drove out to meet Jehu. They met him in the field of Naboth of Jezreel. When Joram saw Jehu, he called out, "Good day, Jehu." Jehu answered, "What's good about it? How can there be anything good about it as long as the promiscuous whoring and sorceries of your mother Jezebel pollute the country?" Joram wheeled his chariot around and fled, yelling, "Ahaziah, it's a trap! Ahaziah!" Jehu pulled on his bow and released an arrow. It hit Joram between the shoulder blades and went right through his heart. He slumped to his knees in his chariot. Jehu ordered Bidkar, his lieutenant, quick, throw him into the field of Naboth of Jezreel. Remember when you and I were driving our chariots behind Ahab his father? That's when God pronounced this doom upon him. As surely as I saw the blood of murdered Naboth and his sons yesterday, you'll pay for it on this exact piece of ground. God's word. So take him and throw him out in the field. God's instructions carried out to the letter. Ahaziah, king of Judah, saw what was going on and made his escape on the road toward Beth Hagan. Jehu chased him, yelling out, "Get him too!" Jehu's troops shot and wounded him in his chariot on the hill up to Gur near Ibleam. He was able to make it as far as Megiddo. There he died. His aides drove on to Jerusalem. They buried him in the family plot in the city of David. In the 11th year of the reign of Joram, son of Ahab, Ahaziah had become king of Judah. When Jezebel heard that Jehu had arrived in Jezreel, she made herself up, put on eyeshadow, and arranged her hair, and posed seductively at the window. When Jehu came through the city gate, she called down, "So, how are things, Zimri, you dashing king killer?" Jehu looked up at the window and called, "Is there anybody up there on my side?" 2 or 3 palace eunuchs looked out. He ordered, "Throw her down." They threw her out the window. Her blood splattered the wall and the horses, and Jehu trampled her under his horse's hooves. Then Jehu went inside and ate his lunch. During lunch, he gave orders, "Take care of that damned woman. Give her a decent burial. She is, after all, a king's daughter." They went out to bury her, but there was nothing left of her but skull, feet, and hands. They came back and told Jehu. He said, "It's God's word, the word spoken by Elijah the Tishbite. In the field of Jezreel, dogs will eat at Jezebel. The body of Jezebel will be like dog droppings on the ground in Jezreel. Old friends and lovers will say, 'I wonder, is this Jezebel?'" Ahab had 70 sons still living in Samaria. Jehu wrote letters addressed to the officers of Jezreel, the city elders, and those in charge of Ahab's sons, and posted them to Samaria. The letters read, "This letter is fair warning. You're in charge of your master's children, chariots, horses, fortifications, and weapons. Pick the best and most capable of your master's sons and put him on the throne. Prepare to fight for your own master's position." They were absolutely terrified at the letter. They said, "2 kings have already been wiped out by him. What hope do we have?" So they sent the warden of the palace, the mayor of the city, the elders, and the guardians to Jehu with this message: "We are your servants. Whatever you say, we'll do. We're not making anyone king. You're in charge. Do what you think best." Then Jehu wrote a second letter. "If you are on my side and are willing to follow my orders, here's what you do. Decapitate the sons of your master and bring the heads to me by this time tomorrow in Jezreel." The king's sons numbered 70. The leaders of the city had taken responsibility for them. When they got the letter, they took the king's sons and killed all 70. Then they put the heads in baskets and sent them to Jehu in Jezreel. A messenger reported to Jehu, "They've delivered the heads of the king's sons." He said, "Stack them in 2 piles at the city gate until morning." In the morning, Jehu came out, stood before the people, and addressed them formally. "Do you realize that this very day you are participants in God's righteous working? True, I am the one who conspired against my master and assassinated him, but who do you suppose is responsible for this pile of skulls? Know this for certain, not a single syllable that God spoke in judgment on the family of Ahab is cancelled. You're seeing it with your own eyes. God doing what through Elijah he said he'd do." Then Jehu proceeded to kill everyone who had anything to do with Ahab's family in Jezreel. Leaders, friends, priests, he wiped out the entire lot. That done, he brushed himself off and set out for Samaria. Along the way, at Beth Eked, binding house of the shepherds, he met up with some relatives of Ahaziah, king of Judah. Jehu said, "Who are you?" They said, "We're relatives of Ahaziah, and we've come down to a reunion of royal family." "Grab them," ordered Jehu. They were taken and then massacred at the well of Beth Eked, 42 of them, no survivors. He went on from there and came upon Jehonadab the Rechabite, who was on his way to meet him. Greeting him, he said, "Are we together and of one mind on this?" Jehonadab said, "We are. Count on me." "Then give me your hand," said Jehu. They shook hands on it, and Jehonadab stepped up into the chariot with Jehu. "Come along with me," said Jehu, "and witness my zeal for God." Together they proceeded in the chariot. When they arrived in Samaria, Jehu massacred everyone left in Samaria who was in any way connected with Ahab, a mass execution, just as God had told Elijah. The fate of Ahaziah when he went to visit was God's judgment on him. When Ahaziah arrived at Jezreel, he and Joram met with Jehu, son of Nimshi, whom God had already authorized to destroy the dynasty of Ahab. Jehu, already at work executing doom on the dynasty of Ahab, came upon the captains of Judah and Ahaziah's nephew, part of Ahaziah's delegation, and killed them outright. Then he sent out a search party looking for Ahaziah himself. They found him hiding out in Samaria and hauled him back to Jehu, and Jehu killed him. They didn't, though, just leave his body there. Out of respect for his grandfather Jehoshaphat, famous as a sincere seeker after God, they gave him a decent burial, but there was no one left in Ahaziah's family capable of ruling the kingdom. Next, Jehu got all the people together and addressed them. "Ahab served Baal small time. Jehu will serve him big time. Get all the prophets of Baal here, everyone who served him, all his priests. Get everyone here. Don't leave anyone out. I have a great sacrifice to offer Baal. If you don't show up, you won't live to tell about it." Jehu was lying, of course. He planned to destroy all the worshippers of Baal. Jehu ordered, "Make preparation for a holy convocation for Baal." They did and posted the date. Jehu then summoned everyone in Israel. They came in droves, every worshipper of Baal in the country. Nobody stayed home. They came and packed the temple of Baal to capacity. Jehu directed the keeper of the wardrobe, "Get robes for all the servants of Baal." He brought out their robes. Jehu and Jehonadab the Rechabite now entered the temple of Baal and said, "Double check and make sure that there are no worshippers of God in here. Only Baal worshippers are allowed." Then they launched the worship, making the sacrifices and burnt offerings. Meanwhile, Jehu had stationed 80 men outside with orders. "Don't let a single person escape. If you do, it's your life for his life." When Jehu had finished with the sacrificial solemnities, he signaled to the officers and guards, "Enter and kill, no survivors." And the bloody slaughter began. The officers and guards threw the corpses outside and cleared the way to enter the inner shrine of Baal. They hauled out the sacred phallic stone from the temple of Baal and pulverized it. They smashed the Baal altars and tore down the Baal temple. It's been a public toilet ever since. And that's the story of Jehu's wasting of Baal in Israel. But for all that, Jehu didn't turn back from the sins of Jeroboam son of Nebat, the sins that had dragged Israel into a life of sin. The golden calves in Bethel and Dan stayed. God commanded Jehu, "You did well to do what I saw was best. You did what I ordered against the family of Ahab. As reward, your sons will occupy the throne for Israel for 4 generations." Even then, though, Jehu wasn't careful to walk in God's ways and honor the God of Israel from an undivided heart. He didn't turn back from the sins of Jeroboam son of Nebat, who led Israel into a life of sin.